Dude. Oh, for a second, I thought you were doing the Jurassic Park theme, and I was like, motherfucker, dragons are not dinosaurs.
What are those?
So that is coming up very soon.
I actually have never been more excited for a Jurassic Park movie.
Fascinating.
Even though I think most of the world is not too enthusiastic about this
people
one.
are kind of pissed about this movie.
But I guess I'm just kind of glad that like they seem to be taking the direction of like, fuck it, angrier,
What else are you gonna
scarier
do?
dinosaurs.
Yeah. I'm excited for that because of the director. Gareth Edwards is such a good director.
Yes, he
I
is.
love 2014's Godzilla. It's so good. Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're actually talking about another sequel spin-off.
We're talking about IP that we've never discussed here on this program.
No, it's this new IP called John Chick.
Excellent.
We're talking about Ballerina from the world of John Wick, Ballerina.
From the wizarding world of John Wick.
Yes.
Can you imagine John Wick is able to better expand its IP than Harry Potter is?
That is crazy.
Let's not talk about the Continental show, which I haven't seen.
I've heard. Okay, listen, I think from what I remember hearing, it's not that it's bad. It's just not to the level of John Wick movies. And you know what? That's a fair criticism, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think you need certain things for a John Wick thing to have the sauce.
You do. The first thing is gun go bang.
Go bang. Yeah.
And then the next thing is gun go bang with style.
With style.
And that's kind of it.
Style. But this movie's actually been in the works for quite a while. I think if I remember correctly, this thing was like teased all the way back when John Wick Chapter 3 came out.
Yeah.
Because soon after that, they were like, we're going to have a lady John Wick. And people were like, excuse me? And so that's kind of where that kicked off. I had been very excited for this, mostly because I like things that go bing, bing, boom and explode. And then if you add a hot chick to it, even better. So for me,
when that hot chick is the celebrity love of my life.
Yeah, is she still your celebrity, like, number one?
I'm ready actually to add her back to my phone wallpaper.
You're getting. Do you want to show the lovely ladies and gentlemen who will watch the video version of this what your background is?
I will. So my current background is let's see, adoring fans.
Dude, I wonder if it'll. Oh my God!
Is the CIA agent who of the CIA agents who helped hunt Osama bin Laden.
Holy shit!
And I'm impressed as to how she got her job. And she seems very competent.
Sure. But yeah, because for the longest time, your background was her from, was not her lady, was Ana de Armas from
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die as Paloma.
Which, are these two films that were just in production for a long time? Because I feel like No Time to Die was previewed for a long time. I don't remember when it came out, if it was like pre or post COVID.
Yeah, it came out definitely post COVID.
So I think COVID is what delayed that coming out then.
COVID definitely delayed that quite a bit. Yeah. Which is unfortunate because I don't dislike it, but I do feel like it got a bit of a bad rep. Like I just feel like a lot of people didn't give it the time of day, and they were like, "It's an okay movie." But then looking back, I'm like, it's not just a good movie; it's a pretty great movie.
It's the third best Daniel Craig movie of James Bond.
That's still, but like,
that's smack dab in the middle.
But here's the thing, right? Like, I feel like even the worst James Bond
of Daniel Craig
is still, I think, better than a lot of the other ones.
Well, that would be Spectre. And that's a debate for another day. But anyway,
Ballerina.
How these are related, I think it's Ana de Armas's role in No Time to Die that helps secure her this spot, right? I assume.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the timetable, because like I said, Ballerina had been in the works for so long. I don't know how the casting went, like, kind of along with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I heard that her casting happened here, I had seen her in No Time to Die, and I was like, "Oh, we're good."
Yes.
Because like it's always the question with these movies, like who are they gonna get to do action believably, right? It's really hard to fill the shoes of Keanu.
Yeah.
Listen, I love Keanu. He's a sweetie pie, but I am not going to pretend that he is like, a thespian of the theater.
So how many of these have we recorded in our podcast? We've done 4 for sure. Have we reviewed 3 together?
We never reviewed 3. That was before the pod.
So I don't know if I've used this analogy, but I would assume I would have made similar comments. I think the thing that makes John Wick amazing is it hits one note
Mhm.
and it hits it really fucking well.
Is it once again gun go bang?
It just keeps going, right? It just this is not a series of highs and lows. This is not a series of extreme dynamic character development. This is just a series of like high octane that keeps going.
I think we've definitely stressed this enough. That's the point.
That's the point.
That's the point, and I don't think it's a formula that needs any changing.
Like, were you ever able to play Flight of the Bumblebee on your trumpet?
Not well.
But you know Flight of the Bumblebee. Like,
Yeah.
so that's these movies. It's Flight of the Bumblebee, just like going and going and going, and it just keeps getting louder and punchier
Just
and more
more
powerful.
chaotic and more chaotic.
Yes, but it does not stop.
And you know what? I can't think of another franchise that has done it to the degree, not necessarily to the degree of like every installment is just crazy shit on crazy shit, but it's that every installment is crazy shit, and like that's it.
Yes,
And
it
then
works.
you're happy with that.
Yes,
right? Because like we've talked about like the Fast and Furious movies, and like the joke is that, like, oh, they're gonna go to space, and holy fucking shit, they did end up going to space. Damn. But then not only that, it's like there's severe lows in those movies where I feel like in these it's just up, 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 and then as far as that scale goes up, like it's still entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
So this new movie focuses on our new character. Her name is Eve. She's the daughter of a fellow John Wick family member. He's part of the Rusko Roma. His name is Javier.
Yes.
And he's played by the guy who plays Diego in Umbrella Academy. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Because I really do like that show, even though apparently I heard that season 4 does not end well, and that's why I haven't watched it.
So sad.
But it's nice to see like a good actor get good work too. But this whole movie is basically this woman goes on her own revenge tour, basically, which is very John Wick, but her motivations are different than his.
Yes. In many ways, I applaud this movie for actually being worse than your average John Wick movie and rebounding, in the sense that you begin with like kind of a very basic motivation for revenge. Like, tale as old as time, you killed my father, prepare to die. Right?
Is it more, did you use the word generic?
Yeah.
Right? Is it though more generic than John's initial desire for revenge?
You killed my wife. His wife died.
The wife was dead. She died of like cancer.
No, you killed my dog is less generic.
You think it's less generic?
My father. It is. It is.
Sure. I think it's more niche.
Yes.
But it's still like you killed blank, prepare to die.
Both are simple. Both are you killed blank, prepare to die.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there is an extra layer of the fact that it is like
a dog.
A dog, and it's a dog that was gotten to cope with grief of like a dead wife.
This is gonna sound really mean, and I swear I don't mean this to sound mean, but there's something so inherently silly of the degree of violence he's willing to resort to over a dog.
Correct.
And I think that's why I find this franchise so fascinating.
Absolutely.
And I love that even in the third movie they mentioned it, in this movie they mentioned it again when he goes back home and he's meeting with the head of the Rusko Roma. She's like, all this for a puppy? He's like, it wasn't just a puppy.
But that's the thing. This is where, so this movie, like, does something that we haven't seen in a while in John Wick, where we're beginning with
Exposition.
exposition in
Hell yeah.
a good chunk of time of exposition,
So
right?
I haven't had a chance to go back. I really do want to go back and watch the first one and see how much of that is the beginning exposition.
Yeah, but after
And
one, but after
we've had none, which is I think why this kind of hit as so jarring,
yes,
because we're so used to like scene one action,
yes,
right? Whereas here, I mean, but here's the thing, because I've seen this twice now, and both times I remember also being like, or the first time I was like, huh, this is a lot of exposition. But then
yeah,
on the second watch, I was sitting there going like, even though it is exposition, there is a significant amount of action early on to at least get you started on something.
yes.
Like the whole raid on the house where the cult is trying to find her and the dad is, killing people. That's a pretty good action scene.
It's a good action scene, but I would say by itself in a vacuum, to me, it doesn't stand out from too much more in any other like action
No.
movie.
Here's how I almost look at that. You know how we were talking, holy shit, we also got to talk about Life of Chuck. Holy shit.
So, of the 3 movies that we have yet to review, we forgot about the most interesting one.
The most like critically, well, I don't even know about that, but like the most like, if you were to tell someone like, hey, which movie's the best? If you didn't say Life of Chuck out of these 3, people would be like, are you fucking insane?
And that, hey, the power of IP.
The power of life.
We are victims. We are we are victims to the power of IP.
But anyway,
Yeah.
holy shit, what am I'm blanking on my point here.
I don't know. So as a white man, I'll step over you.
Yes,
All
go
I'm
for it.
is this movie, it can't avoid beginning with exposition because it's a spinoff and because the main character is dead in the series. So I applaud it for basically like taking the L, so to speak.
What do you mean by the main character? You mean John is
John
dead?
Wick. John Wick's dead.
Sure,
Yes,
but in the context of this movie, he's not.
in the context
dead,
of this movie, is not.
right?
But from what we've seen as viewers, John Wick is
Sure.
dead, right?
Sure.
So it has to start with exposition. I do think it kind of has to start with like this amount of exposition.
Oh, it needs to. Otherwise, you don't care about her.
And I kind of really applaud it for taking the L, so to speak, and just say like we're gonna be a basic action movie for like 20 minutes. But then once we get to where we need to go, it's just high octane again.
And to that effect, I remember what I was going to say. Even though you said like this movie begins with a fairly like not out of place action scene for another action movie, like even then, if this is the worst action scene that we can think of in the John Wick movie, it's still
good.
It's still better than 90%, which is kind of where we got to the John Flanagan thing, where even if Midnight Club is not his best work, like it's still way better than a lot of the shit out there.
Ooh. This is where we might disagree, but let's push that.
You don't think Midnight Club is like at least good?
I haven't finished it.
Oh, you should. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. It gets the feels towards the end. Anyway, back to the matter at hand.
Yes.
Matter at hand. I do really think though the fact that this starts with this exposition makes me not only appreciate Eve as a character more. I think it's important if you don't start with her exposition here. I mean, John is a simple character. I'm not saying it's not, but you are invested in his story arc because even though his intro is so simple, it's still very powerful, right? People love dogs and people don't like dogs getting got. Yeah. So you want everyone to die.
Yep.
Easy, right? But for her, I think what really helps is we get to see something that we haven't seen in the franchise, which is like the training that they go through.
Yeah.
With John, like we go with him hopping back into the game. He's already has, he's got his notoriety. With her, we can see how this whole process begins from how they recruit them from a very young age to then like her going through, basic martial arts training to gun combat to, her dexterity and the reloading and all that shit. So that's something that even though it's not a super long amount of time, I still found very interesting, even though it was like part of the exposition.
Yeah, I won't go as far as to say very interesting, but I
But
will
it makes the beginning part.
it does what it needs to do. It gets you
Yeah.
invested in the character.
Hmm.
And it helps establish the power levels of this protagonist versus our main protagonist.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I do appreciate the fact that we don't start with her being at John Wick levels of like, Omega level threat.
Because her first mission is at like that party in what's kind of like a nice hotel castle type place, right?
Yeah.
And she's supposed to protect some sort of important person who's getting kidnapped by rivals,
Hmm.
right? And she kind of gets her ass handed to her, not entirely, but like
She takes some serious hits.
she takes them serious.
She's not over here like mowing people
Yeah.
down. I do find it interesting though that they sent her on this mission and they're like, "Yeah, you get rubber bullets."
Yes.
Which I think, honestly, though, it's kind of crazy to think about the fact that this group of like assassins is like, listen, man, we just don't. It's your first mission. We know things can get tense. We don't want innocent bystanders.
That and also I've always kind of enjoyed the trope of any action genre, making it so that like your protagonist must first learn how to fight with the shitty weapons
Yeah,
before they can fight with like the good ones. I always
yeah.
enjoy that because it's like you really got to earn your stripes.
You got to earn your signature weapon and your signature scene, right? Even though that scene though, it, again, just kind of like how we were saying, like it doesn't start super flashy. It's still a good scene, and it gets you interested in like, okay, how is she going to handle her
This
first
challenge,
her first challenge out on the field.
yeah,
Do you feel like having her in that time skip only be like 2 months feels a little like short?
it is jarring once you get to that first time skip.
I wonder if the problem here is that because of where the movie takes place, they don't want because they probably could have skipped a few more years and set the movie closer to like John Wick 4 timeline.
Yeah, I don't know, and I also wonder if there's a previous draft of this movie where this like first act or so is longer or if like her training montage has more to it because
Hmm.
it almost feels like something's missing,
Hmm.
and yet I'm glad that it's as short as it is even though it's not super short because like I don't know how interested I would have been in more.
And seeing her do more like trainee level stuff.
Yes, because the movie is not interested in giving her a super, super, super unique backstory, and I don't think it needs to.
No.
But at the same time, I don't need to see. I feel like I, as the viewer, don't need to see much more because I can fill in. I feel like I can fill in the gaps
Yeah.
of like what I missed. But at the same time, to me, it does feel like something like is missing.
I almost kind of feel like the way they do build her up, like she's definitely very competent as a fighter. I think almost having that time jump, just even if it's on just like a screen, just instead of 2 years, I don't know, or instead of 2 months, be like 2 years later.
Yeah,
I feel like then you can be like, oh, now she is clearing out like a whole ass building on her own, and you'd be like, okay, I can see that
tattoos are kind of used to show time and progress here.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I think it could have been done more. Once again, I don't feel like the film like is really hurt by not doing it.
No, 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 no. But I do think that the movie does a good job at once this scene basically starts, we are introduced to like her main quest of this movie, which is she gets attacked by someone who I'm assuming they're probably working as like contractors for the people that she just took out. She realizes they're from the same cult that killed her family, and now she's trying to find them. And we know that she comes from there because they basically tell us that at the beginning, like, hey, you married my daughter
Mhm.
and now you took my kid, or you took the kid. So
Yep.
we know that she is from this cult group, right? I do wonder, because I don't think they specifically say early on that she herself really remembers that that's where these people are from.
No, I don't think so.
Because she's over here like, who are these people? And then you're like, okay, well, like if you knew this is where you came from, you'd probably be like, hey, help me find where I come from or something. I
Well,
don't know.
spoiler alert, you meet her sister later on.
Later on, yeah.
And when it is revealed to her that it is her sister, she is very surprised Pikachu face.
Yeah, she does say that. So when we see her, she's older, probably, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 12,
Yeah.
realistically speaking. But when the sister meets her, she says, "When you left, I was 9."
Mm.
So that tells me that if she's the older sister and she was 9 when they left, and when we see her, she's probably like 12 or 13 years old in that scene, then she must have been what, 5 maybe?
I
4?
don't know. But
Very young.
here's what I do know. We talked about the dead internet theory recently,
Yes.
right? I think that the John Wick universe is working towards not a dead internet, but a civilian less universe. And this movie carves out a little pocket of that, because part of what makes this cult a cult is there's this town
Everybody.
in somewhere snowy in a mountain where everybody's an assassin,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool. But I remember at the end, which John Wick movie is it when he becomes excommunicado at the end? And is that the one where he gets the news at the opera, or is that in this movie where there's news at the opera about someone being excommunicado?
That's in this one. That's where she's at the opera and everybody gets the phone call.
Well, anyway, looks like fucking everybody.
This, I mean,
everybody.
listen, man. When you're making that much money, what else are you gonna do? You're gonna go to the opera.
I'm just saying that many people. It's a lot of assassins.
I
I would love.
remember in John Wick 2, where he's like getting chased in like a train station,
Yeah.
and he just walks up to some random hobo. He's like, "Here's a coin. Take me to the king." And you're like, "Okay." So like that was the first hint of like everybody here is just an assassin at some
Well, it's all the
point.
homeless people, right?
It's all the homeless people.
It is bonkers.
It's bonkers. But I don't know. In a way, that whole scene. So she does eventually find some contacts through someone who's staying at the Continental, which is Daryl from The Walking Dead, who is all over the promotional material, and he's in the movie for like 5 minutes.
Here's what I will say. I guess my chiefest complaint about this movie: Norman Reedus is underused.
Underused.
And I'm not even like the biggest Norman Reedus fan, but when I saw him, I was like, I'm ready to see some Norman Reedus.
Yeah, and
Some, but not enough.
I'll bring him up in a little bit.
Sure.
But I do think having him in this kind of does. I'm not saying he's like the biggest draw, but I do think there's a lot of Walking Dead fans who are like, "Fuck yeah, dude, Daryl."
It makes sense on paper.
It makes sense on paper
For Daryl to be in John Wick.
Yeah. Eventually, she gets led to this, like you said, this snowy town in the hills by a man who is very frank.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, is this the first scene, I think, that kind of makes you go, "Oh, this movie is going to have its own sauce," right? Because like the whole time you're wanting to compare this, as much as you don't want to compare, you want to compare to John Wick. You're going to, right?
Yeah.
And the last few movies each have had their own like what stands out.
Can I do
right?
an aside real quick?
Yeah.
I know we don't want to compare. I actually am of the opinion that you should compare spin-offs to the OG thing. Because I think when they say like, "Oh, it's not fair to compare," I think that's them trying to have their cake and eat it too. Because I'm like, you exist because you're branching off of this original thing. So I do think it is fair. I do think it is fair to compare. I think it's fair to compare House of the Dragon to Game of Thrones. I think it's fair to compare this Ballerina to John Wick. I think the test is, can this stand alone as its own thing, or can it at least go toe to toe or find a place?
That's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
I think if I went into this movie expecting the exact same level of like stunt work as what Keanu himself can bring, I just don't feel like that's entirely fair, because Keanu has that like background, right? He's had years of perfecting the craft. Like, if you compare John Wick 1 to John Wick 4, very, very different movies in the amount of like stunt work it requires.
Absolutely.
So when I compare the two, I want to compare them almost as like, okay, how did I feel watching John Wick 1, the introduction of this new character, to Ballerina, the introduction of this new character?
Yeah.
That's what I'm more or less where I'm like, I don't want to compare to like the peak of John Wick to this new entry, which is getting its feet,
It's getting its feet wet. Yeah.
wet. But I think it's this scene where she's at this gun shop where it immediately starts to like turn things on its head. Because every John Wick movie, he has the scene where he's like looking for his weapon, and you get a showcase of the cool guns, and this movie just interrupts that.
Yes. With
With a very crazy action sequence involving grenades, because all the weapons are they're for show. They're not loaded. Everything is, put away. And all she can find is just a whole bandolier of grenades. And buddy, listen, I
Which
don't
is
know
fresh.
why. I don't know
Which is
why.
fresh.
I'm like, this would be a really cool, like if this was in a Call of Duty level, that would be really cool.
I agree.
Just, I'm out of ammo, just chucking grenades.
Yeah, it takes you back to first-person shooters prior to Halo, where the grenade had to be its own weapon. Which
Yeah.
Gears did or does, I forget.
Gears has its own weapon. Yeah, you can select it. You can do different things with it. You can like stick it on a wall and it becomes like a trip mine.
But it's not like Halo Call of Duty where you have your gun and then you also press this other button for your grenade. It was back when like, oh no, you want to throw a grenade, you got to switch weapons.
Yeah, no, that's what Gears was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it really does add a different level of like, okay, what is she able to do? Because obviously being close quarters, you can't just like chuck them as
You can't
freely
just
as you
start
want.
blasting. Yeah.
Right. And so she is a little bit more smart about, okay, so where can I use one? And also this is the most like blatant gore I think we've seen in the John Wick movie.
Yeah, probably.
Like motherfuckers are exploding.
I don't remember how much I noticed this in previous movies, but I will say this is the first movie where I noticed that these movies don't have as much gore as they probably would and should.
I mean, to a certain degree, it's a product of the fact that he just uses guns.
He uses guns, but I would say even if he used guns, if you took this movie to its like as scientific realistic as it could be, it would be like a Tarantino movie up in here with the amount of gore that it would be.
I think 3 is the closest we get. Is like the second we get to like the most amount of like things exploding on bodies that you can think of, because it's the scene where he has like the armor piercing shotgun.
Yeah.
And so like there you have like heads like half missing, but it's so dark it doesn't register. A lot of these scenes are happening in like very bright, or not bright, but like well lit rooms. So I think it stands out more.
And I think that's part of the aesthetic that makes John Wick John Wick. Like I think if John Wick took a turn for the gory, then it would not be. To me, it would not be John Wick anymore.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't need it. I think the fact that she's using such an explosive weapon, literally as a grenade, I think it needs to. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know. I feel like the level of you can't suspend that disbelief if like a grenade explodes and the person's there.
And yet she's not walking out of there like Carrie, right? Like covered in gunk and blood.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what makes John Wick work is it's actually very consequenceless violence.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a lot of violence, but not a lot of gore. It's basically like grunts being dropped like everywhere. Like grunts and like B tier bosses. And the fact that everybody's an assassin, like also doesn't make it feel like the violence has a lot of consequence. So it really like I really do think this movie is in essence of what playing like a video game is. You're just gunning down.
Yeah, just gunning down grunts and then just moving along with your day.
Yeah, and it's fun.
One thing that really did stand out to me when she gets to this village, we have a really fun scene in like a little diner where an assassin walks in, follows her. She beats the shit out of him. Then the waitress starts attacking her, and she gets this look where she's like, I think she does it. She goes, "What the fuck?" Because it's like her first realization that like, oh, this isn't just like the assassins and like the cult strongman coming after me. This is going to be everybody.
Yeah.
There's a scene in there where the waitress calls someone on the phone, and like your first, or at least my first thought was, oh, she's calling, quote unquote, like their group police, be like, hey, someone's here, come get them,
Handle us. Yeah.
come handle us, yeah.
Yeah.
But immediately she starts like wailing at her with a knife, and it really does catch her off guard. But that whole scene is a ton of fun because it's just civilians starting to come after her.
Yep. Nowhere is safe.
Nowhere is safe.
Nowhere is safe in this
Which
town.
then leads me to a scene that I found very interesting. When she's in this town and she's going through the town and fighting everybody, it's the middle of the fucking day.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a John Wick scene that's in the middle of the day in bright sunny, or well, not sunny, but it's like snowy, but it's like very bright because the sun's out.
No.
And I think it added such a level of like weirdness to it because you're like, holy shit, this is just a town of like people who are willing to like just chase someone down.
I love horror and danger in daylight.
Yeah, it throws you off.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
think
didn't
that's my
love
favorite thing.
Midsummer, did you?
Midsummer is just slow. But I love Us, right? And Us has some daylight sequences.
Some daytime stuff at the end, but it's mostly
A
most
lot
of
is
the
at
action
night.
takes place at night.
A lot is at night, but it does have some daytime sequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
They feel very fresh, right?
Yeah.
And it's challenging to a filmmaker because you can't rely on our primal fear of the dark,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to make the thing that makes us feel safe. Like you have to take that and make it and nullify it somehow.
Yeah. But also I think like with John, we've always had very I would say colorful action sequences.
Yeah.
But still inherently dark action sequences because they're all happening at clubs or like at night in like a city where yes, you have lights and you can still see what's going on, but it's the fact that nighttime feels exotic, feels like there's a sense of danger, and then now you have it in the daytime and you're like, this is where everybody should be happy and
Yes.
holding hands with their children, and instead they're like hopping through windows and doing crazy shit.
This movie did. I never fully thought it was going to go this way, but there were points in this sequence where I was like, "Are we going to see them off a kid in this movie?" And I don't think John Wick will ever go there. But it was
No.
to that point where I was like, "Well, like it's within the realm of possibility that a child could come out blasting."
Yeah, because there's that scene where the bells are ringing and they're about to
Yeah.
send everybody, and the teachers come out.
And the
And they're
children do hide
like,
away, right? So the
they're like,
movie
all right,
does
children, go
logic.
hide. But then it pans to the side, and there's like targets in the playground. So you're like, okay, these kids are definitely shooting shit.
Yeah. They
I'm
couldn't
not
do.
gonna say that thought didn't cross my mind, but I immediately was like, no fucking way.
No fucking way. But it's within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. It's after this that we get John back in the movie for a little bit because the chancellor, he's the guy who's the leader of the cult, calls. I wish they would give her a name because like we have Winston, we know Winston.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had a better name than the director, especially for like because she feels very motherly, especially towards John, and you do feel a little bit of that towards Eve.
Yes.
So I kind of wish there was a name for her than just the director. But I do find it funny that she calls her mom.
Correct.
I don't know why. It's really kind of sweet that she calls her mom.
Very Judi Dench.
Very Judi Dench, yes. But John comes in basically to her like, hey, listen, like you gotta get the fuck out of here. Like you're starting some shit. Like this is not going to end well. Get the fuck out. And he just beats the shit out of her.
This is the other scene where you see that John is more powerful than
John is John. You're not toppling John. I think they were also very smart at never making it seem like John was like on the back foot. Like he always had the upper hand. And she is severely struck. Yeah, she does get a few licks in, but it's not because she's better. It's because one thing that I've always noticed about John and his fighting style is he's always willing to take the hit.
He always
If
takes
it,
some licks.
but not just that, but he takes the lick if it means that it gives him the upper hand that he wants.
Mm.
In a lot of the other movies, like if someone's trying to stab him, he will take the stab if it means he can then get him close to either shoot them or stab them or do something to them. Which she does in this movie later on. Someone is holding her with a knife and she chooses to take the knife to then kill the person.
Yes.
But when John gives her like this break to basically like, you got until midnight, you got 30 minutes to get this done.
They have an Israel-Palestine ceasefire.
It's where we get I think our standout scene, which is the flamethrower scene.
Absolutely. Bar none.
Bar none. I don't know where they go from here. I know we said the exact same thing.
It does make me, I will say, I love the flamethrower scene. I think I love Dragonfire shotgun scene more.
Yes, absolutely.
It does make me hope that the next standout scene does not involve fire. I think if the next one involves fire, then I do think then we've treaded on the same ground one too many times.
Yes,
it could be.
I agree. I agree. Fire and fire is like, okay,
Yeah.
very similar. But I do think there is such a flamethrowers are just such a
cool weapon.
Not just cool, but like they feel so unpredictable.
And these feel like they have weight, right?
Yes. The fire, one of the things that I noticed is this fire feels scary.
Yeah.
I don't normally like slow motion in movies, especially when it gets used a lot. This movie uses slow motion in this flamethrower scene a lot, but I think it's for the better. It gives that fire, that weightiness that you talk about. It makes it feel real. Like, I'm assuming they use some sort of CG. I also know they're crazy enough to do some of the stunts with the actual flamethrowers.
Right.
But it just adds such a level of like, holy shit, this fire is going to melt someone.
Yeah, and not just melt. Like there's that scene in Watchmen where you see the comedian use his flamethrower, right? Right? He has a flamethrower. And it feels like a spray bottle, right? Where like, you're just dousing the room in fire.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of if you've seen Elon Musk's shitty flamethrower.
Yeah.
That's what that reminds me of, where you're just like, yeah, it's just a flame and you're moving it around. But this feels like
this is like a giant boxing glove.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knock you down.
But
it's fire.
It's fire and it's scary. One of the things that I really appreciate, and I don't know how much of it is done with CG or a trick of the light, but there's multiple scenes where the fire is like on one of the stunt performers, and it looks like it is actually like touching them, and they are reacting to it. There's two that I noticed. One is when the baddie with the big square face is shooting at Eve, and then it goes on her face and she like reacts to it. So I'm like, I wonder if the stunt person had like the gel.
Yeah.
And they shot fire at her, and I mean it's still fire hitting you in the face. It's gonna be warm, so you react. And then there's a scene where the guy, he gets his own lick in, and the fire like starts burning on his jacket. Which then also leads to a really cool scene that I didn't notice the first time I watched, but the second time I was like, oh, that's really cool. He lights his foot on fire on purpose and starts kicking her with the flaming foot.
Wow.
And I was like, that's so fucking cool. Dedication to the craft, man. Like, you know what the crazy thing about talking about this movie is? Yes, we've talked about plot. We've talked about like what's going on in the story, but we really are focusing on like this shit's cool and this shit's cool.
This movie really is two sequences that really are the standout highlights. And I don't know if it's a knock on the movie or not. Like, I think the rest of the movie is good enough where that's not too much of a knock on the movie. But I think this movie works in the sense that it's able to establish itself as a new character. and then it gets you back to like, all right, spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I could imagine Ballerina 2 being like a normal John Wick movie in the
Oh yeah.
sense that like I expect it to pick up where we left off
I hope
and then
they
keep
don't.
going.
I hope they don't make the mistake of being like, well, she is a female character, so she is going to have more maybe emotion
Drama.
behind what her drama, more drama. I'm like, I hope they don't do that for her.
Don't need that.
Don't need that. That's not what this audience wants.
Yes.
I do kind of hate the fact that multiple reviews that I heard about this movie felt the need to like specify just before you know this isn't a girl boss movie.
Yeah.
I was like,
Interesting.
I don't give a fuck if it's a girl boss movie. She should be a girl boss. She
Right.
should kick ass. I mean, she's not like like we said, she's not OP, but like that shouldn't be like a defining factor for this movie. I feel like it does.
Correct.
It stands out on its own without going the route of like making her god mode right off the bat.
Yeah. Now then I am very interested to see where this offshoot of the franchise ends up. But
Mm-hmm.
that's putting the cart way before the horse.
And kind of to kind of head there, it is a movie that has been reviewing very well. People generally like it, but I am concerned about its money, because every John Wick movie, I don't know if you heard the factoid, every John Wick movie has done quite a lot more money than the previous one, and this is the first one where we see a big
Yep.
decrease.
Yeah.
And I do remember, I think the director came out, or not the director, Chad Stahelski, who's the one of the creators, came out and said like, yeah, I didn't really want to have John be in this movie as much as he was, but I do also like recognize that you need John to sell the movie to like the normies.
Yeah.
So I see his struggle there. I do hope to see a lot more of her, to the point where if she gets her own movie, I want that to be her own movie.
Yes. Right. I think the interesting test to see is how much money John Wick 5 will make. Because to me, it makes sense that a spinoff with a female lead made less than the previous John Wick movie.
Which is stupid as fuck.
Yes, but I think spinoff. I'm weighing spinoff in there more.
More than women?
Yes, I
Fair.
think both are factors.
Yeah.
But I'm weighing spinoff personally, like my own personal interest. I predict that John Wick 5 will not make as much money, but I could be totally very wrong.
I think a good factor here is going to be the Kane movie. Seeing
I keep
what
forgetting about
happens
that.
with the Kane movie, I think is going to be our litmus test on more even ground. If it's the John Chick, if that's the key factor, or if it's the spin-off that's the key factor.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. I think that's coming out hopefully not terribly long in the future.
Yeah.
I love this world. I think it's a ton of fun. Like I said, I love the fact that this movie expanded even if it's a little bit on like the way the training works. I am curious as to what then Kane can introduce to this. He feels very much like a John character, and the fact that he's already very established in his craft as an assassin.
Yes.
I
And
do
John Wick
think,
4 lends us
yeah.
to believe that they're of equal.
Oh,
They're
for
of equal
sure.
stature. Yeah.
I would even say that I think
Kane has the handicap.
Kane, I think Kane has a handicap for sure,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure Kane gets the upper hand a couple of times. He just doesn't want to pull that trigger on John,
I think so.
right?
Yeah.
I have to rewatch, but I'm very excited to see the future of this franchise. So big recommend on my behalf.
Yes.
Thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to our review. Surprisingly on topic.
Yeah.
Surprisingly on topic. We will be back very soon with a review of a beloved 15-year-old movie that just got a remake
That we also just reviewed.
Hey, man, which is why the next review was going to be like 5-10 minutes. All right, everybody. Until next time, he has been Thano.
He has been Javier.
And this has been the Cine-Scoots Movie Show. Bye.
Bye.
Oof, oof.